let's do this. Yeah. I guess it's working. Ok. Then, eu vou começar em português, então depois a gente troca para inglês. Mas eu queria apresentar o Dan Wood, do sócio do WorkAC, tem lá na descrição. A gente vai falar hoje sobre, relacionando um artigo que eu escrevi com alguns projetos do WorkAC, com cebolas, e a gente vai ver aonde isso vai dar, beleza? Então, em geral, a gente vai conversar em inglês, vocês podem escrever, tem as legendas em automáticas do YouTube, e daí vão acompanhando, beleza? E quem puder, vai escrevendo os comentários e eu vou vendo e faço as perguntas. Show? Se tiver tudo certo aí, a gente vai começar. All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. It's always super cool. I will introduce Dan. Dan was a very important person for me. I was his student, his colleague, his employee. We had a lot of coffees together, and like the texts and the projects. I think everybody that is my student knows the projects because I'm always referencing and stealing ideas to share, and I think that's a very good thing. And if we can share Dan's mind, everybody wins. I wish we could see more of your sketches. I will show one in the end, but you guys, during the meetings, we always have like random sketches that are super awesome to see. And thank you very much for coming. Then if you want to say something, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I'm happy to visit Brazil. I've never been there before, so this is my first trip. And
Yes.
seems very familiar.
Yes, it looks like home, no?
I have a pen I can draw on my screen. You know, we don't draw on paper anymore because we're
Wow.
screens.
That would be cool, yeah, totally. So how are we gonna do this? As everybody knows, this is kind of a protest class we're doing to show that maybe some institutions are on the wrong side. And the whole idea now is to present one concept, and I'm gonna throw this concept to Dan, and we're gonna discuss and see if he agrees or what is the thinking. Maybe we get some sketches. Perfect. I'll show here, and then if you can, well, I'll talk about it like 3-4 minutes, and then we talk. Thanks. So ideas to postpone the end of the world, which is cool, how to postpone or why. Dan Wood, I think that needs no more introduction. I forgot to say before WorkAC, which is awesome. He was a partner at OMA. He invented AMO and the Universal Headquarters, which is a genius project, and the IIT. And so there's a long story there. One thing I think is cool is that you were like script writing cinema student before, right?
Yeah.
I think it fits a lot.
Theory.
Yeah, it's better than doing, right? You just think about things. But I think this is very, very important. And today I want to talk about making onions, and I hope nobody cried in the end. But I think onions is it's a really interesting concept, and I hear Amal should always thought about this concept, and I wanted to bring here. We'll just use one line of thought, so bear with me. This is I think one of the earliest projects, right? Is the interiors, the renovation of this house. This is Dan and the kids. And I guess they grown a lot, yeah. what I think you can recognize, what is lovely about this picture, apart from the family environment, it's really cool there, are these three panels from Venturi and Denise Scott Brown from the Best store. So these are like really cheap, banal panels that once Venturi put on the facade, it became a work of art. So now you get this in two places, in his living room and at MoMA when you just go outside the escalator. So it kind of became a cult work, and this is the store. I guess we all know that it's very generic. There's this facade, and what I want to talk about this today is the idea that we discuss facades a lot in a sense of a surface, right? So there's this box, and we have a surface, and the surface is drawn as colors and symbols applied, and we can say that in the postmodern, like the 60s, 70s, this was the biggest invention. Like, let's make a generic shed where the architecture is the facade. What I propose, my argument is that this is nothing really new. That's not postmodern at all, because if someone like Le Corbusier did this 50 years before, and it's pretty much the same. So Corbusier got this generic pavilion, and he applied the same painting and this marketing thing to show like his pavilion store marketing decoration. So what it what I start questioning is that how we can split modern, postmodern. Are we postmodern if postmodernism is like painting sheds, decorating sheds? I mean, if Corbusier did this, probably it's not super postmodern, or maybe it's the modern thing is to do this. But then I get this quote: if we were to summarize life in a city and life in a building one gesture, it would have to be that of passing through borders. Every moment of our existence is a continuous movement through space defined by walls. So what we can say is that architecture is passing through walls. Is this wall that is a generic pavilion, painted, decorated? What does it mean? And it's all easy, it's all fun until again Corbusier makes this wall really thick, and it has like a space. It's not just a screen, a surface, but it's a space. So the question is, what happens when this space exists? Again, it starts growing, and Bernard Tschumi makes this space as a sandwich in this envelope, is in the roof that is old and new, and we don't know anymore if you're inside or outside. Lerner Hall at Columbia, that there's pretty much no building. It's all this facade. In the facade, you have the ramps and the people dancing. So did Bernard Tschumi design the building, or he designed the events, or we have no idea what's the face of this building, because the face is whatever happens and whatever people perform in it. So it's not anymore like functional, it's not representative or decorative, but maybe it's a performance, right? And the building changes. And to me, the most amazing, impressive building in the last few years is this parking garage. Like, it's a very common, cheap, very usual building. The structure is all like it's the same as you get everywhere, but then the concept or the idea behind it's kind of layering as an onion. So the first layer, you have a thick wall where they made this ant farm, right? So you can go up and down and across and see things, and I kept thinking, what does it mean for the city? Because it is a very functional building. So you see express the functions, the things you can do, the DJ and the swimming pool and all this like um, library and everything. But it's a very compositional, it's a very beautiful design, like a drawing. And then it's both. And it kind of, this ambiguity, it messes with everything. And we don't know in this pink space if this is inside or this is outside, and this is the city or this is the architecture. And I will leave with this question for us to talk about, is that when you're in this space, in this 1.2 meters, this 4 feet sandwich, the thick envelope, are you inside or outside? Is this a drawing made by an architect or by an urbanist? And why is this important? Why we care about it? Because we need to think about which rule are we gonna submit, or which rule are we gonna observe? Because there are things you can do inside your house or inside your building, in the architecture, that you cannot do outside in the city, and vice versa. So I think this question is very interesting, because we can think, if you don't know if you're inside or outside, if you're like public or private, what can you do, right? And I think this opens up like a billion possibilities to behave, to perform, and to do things. And I think if we want to integrate and we're going to make a better city, we need to think about this thickness of our facades, not just a superficial view. That's it. That's it for like questioning. And you can see this development in a lot of different buildings and projects by WorkAC also. And I didn't really bring more, but pretty much I think the last projects are following this path, right? Thank you. Then what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's great. It's nice to sit through a lecture about your own work. I never experienced that.
I'm sorry it was me, but yeah.
No, it's great. Very and great drawings. And yeah, I think we started with smaller projects and with interiors, and but we always, one of the first rules of the office was to always think or act bigger. So if you were yeah, there it is. It's actually rule number one. I forgot. Rule number one, act bigger, which doesn't necessarily, I mean, sometimes it meant that we would pretend we were a big firm so we could try to get projects, but, and sometimes it meant that, we would try to expand the scope of a project, by, doing more than the client asked for. But it also means that even if you're working at a very small scale, you're still thinking about urban issues, and this conflation of the urban and the architectural and the small and the big, I think is something that resonated all the way through. And for us, we had this idea of the onion in very early projects where it was simply a plan device to create, let's say, a perimeter zone and a central zone. We did a very early project for video editing suites where there was an object in the middle that created space around it, because you needed darkness for the video editing, but there were a lot of people who just came and hang out waiting for their videos to be edited. So it was really, it started as a plan, but I think, yeah, when it flipped into a kind of way of thinking about the facade, this idea of, collapsing the interior with the urban, and creating this kind of third space was really exciting, like you were saying. So it was certainly an evolution in the work, that at the same time kind of resonated with a lot of these early ideas. And I do think, after Miami, we did a project for the Beirut Museum of Art, which is still an ongoing project. It should start up again in 2 weeks supposedly. Um, but there we really we wrote a little treatise about the balcony as a kind of, as an example from history that is this kind of space. And I think in Beirut and probably in Brazil, where you have a climate that really is conducive to balcony life, um, buildings really took advantage of this space that was between inside and outside. And what you realize is that the balcony does so many different things, including creating shade for the glass to the inside of the building. So it kind of already shades whatever light is coming in. And it also provides a place to grow plants and to kind of bring nature into the apartment. But more than that, it also provides a place where the interior life of the apartment or the building can kind of participate in the life of the street, and I think people's behavior on a balcony is different than either on a sidewalk or in the inside of the building. So, these balconies are just perform so much, and they also add to the culture of a city life in an important way. And I think we also noticed, and probably I would imagine, because this happens in every country in the world, also in Brazil, balconies become less and less a part of urban life as buildings become more like glass skyscrapers, and kind of this actual flattening, and then relying on the glass to try to create this membrane between inside and outside means the glass has to work very hard because it's no longer shaded on a technical side, but it also really creates this wall between inside and outside. And oftentimes the glass buildings are for wealthier people, which kind of also further exacerbates this lack of relationship between the people on the street and the people inside the building. So, our Beirut Museum was really a response to this, to kind of reclaim the balcony as a space for the city and actually have a whole series of experiences like we do in Miami. In Miami, it was an amazing project to be involved with, but in the end, you have to get into the parking lot to participate in this series of, urban events on the facade. So in a way, it's a privatized public space, whereas we always imagined it as an extension of the sidewalk, not an extension of the parking garage. But it is very much privatized. But in our Beirut Museum, we really wanted to turn that and create these outdoor experiences, cultural experiences up the front of the building or around the building that were part of the sidewalk. So yeah, I mean, agreeing with your analysis, and also just saying that it is very, it's really a big part of our thinking. This idea. And we always consider it's interesting to read that quote from Pierre Vittorio. We always think of our buildings in terms of urbanism too, so that stairways become streets, and there's a kind of urban idea about how to organize the interior. I think for us, it doesn't necessarily result in walls, because I think you can do a lot in section to create difference in spaces that don't require walls. I think a lot of times what we're trying to do inside a building is to kind of take the street and make it more vertical, so that you're not, you're passing through different spaces, but you're also moving up through the building.
And I'm just getting this section thing. Do you think there's a lot of freedom in the section? That's why it's maybe the last place we can still do something. Like the idea of free section, not free in Rand's sense, but nobody cares. No construction worker looks at the section, so you can do whatever you want. It's always plan.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. That's what I always tell people in the office, like, forget the sections. No one's going to look at them. So we can design the section, but you don't need it in the set of drawings that you send for the construction. Um,
Similar.
yeah, I mean, I think for me, a section is like it's like magic, because it's essentially it's like an X-ray. You're seeing different parts of the building that are obviously related to each other, but you might not necessarily perceive those relationships um, in the build experientially in the building, but you see them in the section. So I think, and you see how one space impacts another space. So, and you can see by just moving one thing, you impact so much in the building. So I think, yeah, I think it is. We always try to argue that vertical space is free because you're not paying for a floor, but um, but it's not always true. Because sometimes you need more structure. But I do think that yeah, you can do a lot in section without kind of compromising the function of a building. But we also discovered by thickening the facade, you like it didn't cost very much at all to cantilever out the floor plates of the parking garage. And in a way, it didn't matter what shape they were because you can always cantilever that small distance. It was like 1.2 meters basically. So a 1.2 meter cantilever on a parking garage, which has typically like 20-meter spans, is nothing. So that in a way was free. I mean, it was just a small amount of extra concrete, um, and so that created that whole space out of thin air in a way.
But
Once they were
that's
paying for facade, they might as well pay for space. But no one had really thought of it that way.
yeah, exactly. This idea of how did you approach this to convince the client? I mean, did you? I will rephrase. Do you make it conscious for the client that you're doing this public space kind of, when we try to do this here, it's like I'm not paying for somebody else to use my building, right? It's my building, so let's keep it. But do you explain it this way, or you're just like, oh, I'm gonna do it, I'm not gonna tell anyone, and then in the end, oh,
No, we had to. I mean, it was you tell different stories to different people. It was funny in that one because I think that well, in Miami, they require a lot of parking garages, and Miami specifically has like a competition among developers who can build the craziest parking garage. So, because there's so many parking garages by requirement, and because people hate to look at parking garages, like that's the weird situation. In Miami, they tell you you have to put all this parking in, but they also say, but we don't want to look at parking. They really like it was a big argument to just cut holes because that people might actually see the cars. Um, so so in a way, it's a perfect situation to do something funky. And so when the client came to us, they said, do something that's nice to look at. Um, and you can stick out this 1.2 meters if you want to, if you need to. And so we said, well, why don't we, and we said in 1.2 meters we can put some circulation which will help, so you can kind of move down the building without going through an emergency stair after you park your car. And then we said it could be a library, and it could be, the client is an art collector, so the idea of putting like this museum and commissioning this piece, he was really into that. So, and a lot of the stuff was just free, like, I mean, we had to buy a palm tree and put some dirt in, but we're taking the water from the roof when it rains and collecting it to water the tree. So a lot of it was just there. And then, obviously there's design. This is the design district. They have art Basel here. And so the idea of a little auditorium and a DJ booth up here, but it's all, yeah, in a way, they didn't have to pay for anything necessarily. It's all just shapes that can be used in a certain way. Like there's no seats here. But
mhm.
what was funny was, so everybody was kind of into it. And our drawings always said, here's the library, here's the reading room, here's the art gallery. And then when we went to the city, we kind of left all those words on the drawings. And then they really got, the whole thing got so complicated because they said, well, a library requires, 2 full-time librarians, and you need all this stuff, and a DJ booth means you need to get a permit for dancing and all this stuff. And so it was crazy, but in the end, all we did was erase the words from the drawing, and then it was fine.
Hmm. I think, yeah, I think that's why I put this 5-point the list here, because it's a lot like, and I'm thinking how was the office when I was there. Uh, it's a lot about narrative and talking, and I mean I will try to portray when you're doing the Guggenheim building, which for me was amazing. I think it was like 3 weeks maybe to make the competition, right? It's very fast. And out of these 3 weeks, like 2.5 were just like foam boxes, and there was nothing. I was getting super stressed. Like, still, it's 2 weeks. We have like 5 days to go, and there's nothing. Like, it's just two boxes. And then we were talking so much, and we are hearing and discussing, and I was looking at all these things, and then like magic, as you said, it made these. When I blinked, and then when I looked, there was a facade, and there was everything, and everything was in place. And I think this idea of having these lists, like you're saying, maybe it's to calm down the process and to think, and to say, let's put words, and then let's take out the words, and then let's not do anything. Let's like forget everything. It's just like a box. It's very like very unitized things. Okay, now we do boxes, and now they're not boxes anymore, and we forget about. So I don't know. It's not. Yeah.
We definitely. I mean, I think that there's a lot of procrastination.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, we used to have this diagram that I don't know if we ever drew it when you were around, but we had I mean, I can. Here, no, share your screen. I'll just draw on top of it. It's better
Okay. Okay.
because you could disabled something, but
Can you?
yeah, it's fine. So, I mean, we had this. It's the most basic diagram. Oh, yeah. So this was the kind of the process diagram. So that you try to have a good idea, and then you try to make that idea into a shape, but then the shape doesn't look so nice. So then you change the shape, but that means you probably have to adjust the idea. And then once you adjust the idea, then you can adjust the shape, and that you basically go around this circle until you have a deadline. And then you just
Yes. And then it's over.
yeah.
Yeah, I think.
But I think we're talking, yeah, it's there is a kind of nice the moment where anything is possible is a great moment, and we try to stay there as long as we can, because you don't want to make a too quick decision and not have the chance to come up with something better. I think that's kind of the way we look at it. And yeah, when they only give you 3 weeks, the process gets kind of a little hectic. It's true.
No, it was fascinating to see the amount of work that you don't do. I mean, you just like keep wasting. It's wasting. It's a lot of. It's all wasted, and you're not going anywhere. But then it's like this. Maybe it's like a theater behind the curtains. All this craziness thing, like nobody see, and then it opens and it's there. It's really like magic to see. But this diagram, I think. I mean, everybody that I taught studio knows, because I'm always relating to it. Like, okay, the idea is important, but the shape is, in the end, if it's not beautiful, it doesn't work. It's not acceptable. And then you go back and then you do. But what I think, like very psychoanalytically talking, is like, why did you write shape on top of say yes to everything? Because I think it's, I don't remember we talking so much about shape as a style. Like, let's do something that looks like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking about the.
Yeah. We only have
I'm thinking.
yeah.
No, no, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, we
But
have triangles and we have circles. Those are the two sort of shapes we have.
yeah, and it's like, it's not. It is what it is. Like the title of the book, right? We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But then the idea of saying yes to everything, that is, I don't know if you still agree. It's been like 12 years, right?
Yeah.
If you're still saying yes to everything,
Yeah.
I I guess you are, because you're here. So thank you. But every I felt like every shape was possible, every idea was possible until it's not. But
Right.
we never discarded anything. We what something I say a lot to the students is that, like, references and precedents,
Yeah.
um, you know a lot of things, and you know a lot of weird things, which I think it's awesome, because it can be weird. It can be some really random guy from the 40s, and it can be like someone next to you. Um, I don't know how you see that. If it's just yes, if it's not like a Venturi yes, like both, but it's yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are very glad this say yes to everything phase is over because in a way that was just about, doing a lot of work, most of which was not very useful, So that as a phase, but as an attitude, sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like you can always do more, of course, and you can always fit more in your life. I mean, Amal does not agree with me on that, though. I have to say, she always feels like she's doing too much, um, but yeah, I always think like more, 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 more. Because the thing in architecture is that uh, not a lot actually makes it all the way through. You're good if 10% of your like final designed projects get built. So, and even to get to 10 final design projects, you probably need to do 100, sketches, phone calls, answering to people who email you, so it's really like one out of 1,000, I would say, in a way, at least one out of 100. Um, so, so you might as well do more and more and more, for sure. And you might as well put as much as you can into everything you do because who knows if you're ever going to get to do it again. So that I do agree. But on the other hand, what is also different from our earlier phase, where say yes to everything also meant trying all different outfits on, because we came out of OMA in 2003 not knowing what we were interested in or what our style was. And so during that early period, it really was very, I mean, we're still eclectic, but I think that we have things that we like and we know that we like. Like, we know we like onions. We know we like a thickened facade. And the work now is much more kind of variations on a certain number of themes and maybe a little bit more recognizable as a work AC project than those early projects. So in that sense, I think your point about, trying all the shapes, it's true to a point, but I think, if something starts to look completely, Swiss, we had a project that started looking Swiss, just last week. And, it's like, that is just not a good look for us. The kind of,
Mhm.
where it gets overly rational and like something about the proportions. So I think, we know we also know what is working for us. or what we're really interested in terms of shape. Whereas I think in the early days we did not. But precedents and looking at other buildings and looking at other architects, I mean, I think that that comes from OMA and from Rem. He was a walking encyclopedia of everything. And so it it basically just instills in you a love of the history of architecture. And I think, we're always still buying books and finding things and looking at things in cities. And, I think if you like architecture, you should work on loving architecture and like really loving it. And you'll find, even in the most banal places, you can find amazing ideas. So, but I think, yeah, you have to keep looking and keep talking. And I do think, I don't want to complain about students, but I think with the internet, there's just too much on there, but there's not enough architecture on the internet. That's for sure. But there's too much, architecture. There's too much things that are calling itself architecture. There's too many student projects or renderings or half-baked ideas. The thing about this fact that I was saying that not a lot gets built means that I think a thing that gets built by definition has so much invested in it in terms of time and thinking that no matter if it's like a really crappy building or not, it's still worth to look at in a way in more depth than a rendering that someone did in 5 minutes. So I don't know what that means, but I do think that what it means is that I think students and younger people are a little bit lost in terms of knowing what to look at and knowing how to look at things. And so, I think that's a big challenge. But I think, start in the city, and in Brazil, easy, so many amazing buildings. So, but I think that, what was I going to say? I don't remember. Something else.
No, I agree completely. I think the what you say, like, about how to see, how to
Yeah.
look at things, it's maybe overlooked, or wasn't a wordplay, but we don't really, I don't know how to teach this. It's very like visceral thing. I don't know how I tell you, then look at this thing, look at what I'm pointing,
Yeah.
and I don't know how I got this also. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It takes time. It
Yeah,
does.
maybe.
That's the, but I do think, I mean, for me, if I take anything from my very early film world experience, it was learning how to look, because I think that it was very eye-opening to watch a movie and then realize, have the professor go back through frame by frame, and show the story is doing this, and so the shot does this, and it's all thought about. And here's the length of the lens that they use. This is why they cut the scene here instead of somewhere else. This is a linear but created series of still images in a way, that run together to create a visual art form that is oftentimes in the service of a narrative. So it's kind of like it takes all these different worlds and puts them together. It's a story like a book, but it's also a visual thing like a painting or a photograph. And architecture is all those things plus more. We have politics, we have three-dimensional space, we have time. The time does not just run from beginning to end like in a film, but there, all these times are layered on each other, and people have multiple experiences of a building at the same time. So it really pops all those attributes of film into three dimensions. So and in a way, it can be so much. And I think part of looking is also to um, the way that architects traditionally dealt with this problem of so many things happening at once and so much complexity was to develop the architectural drawing. The section and the plan are kind of like ways to take very complex information and create it in a way that you can look at it and understand it. You know, um, it's kind of like an outline of a story. Oftentimes when you want to critique a story, you break it down, or when you're writing a story, you create the outline first. And in a way, I always think of the architectural drawing as those kind of outlines. So a plan is not enough information to understand a building. A section is not enough information. Put a plan and a section together and you can really start to think. And the way that you look at things is when you're looking at a plan, you're thinking about a section, and vice versa, and an elevation, and
Mhm. And I think that's where the models came in, right? You not only, I mean, I'm not, it's kind of I'm trying to be a um, tangential thing here, but you taught me that the model is the only thing that is 3D, right? It's the only thing that everybody looks at the same time.
exactly.
Uh, and we do a lot of models and opening models and things. But I'm thinking there's one question here, and I want to get this train, is that when we're plotting the project, we're like outlining and inventing possible scenarios, like kind of like a complex movie. Uh, is there space, or is it conscious to be like political in a sense? The question was, when you do the Beirut Museum, is it like a statement, a political statement of art in the institutions in the city, and or is
Yeah.
it about, we can't do much, and I'm just gonna try. How much is a power thing for the architect?
hmm no, I mean, I think it is political. I mean, and I think that it was very conscious to open up, because the street is I mean, for us, the street is the most democratic space. The sidewalk is open to everyone. It's very rare that you can be stopped for being on the street. The street is the most public space in a sense. And so the idea of a street that becomes an art museum, was kind of very important, especially in a place like Beirut, where you have a big difference between, well, like everywhere, between rich and poor, and not there are not many public museums in Beirut. Maybe there's none actually. There's one kind of historical museum, but just letting people know that art is available to them, that it's something that they can participate in. So we always think of the art that's on the outside of the building much more like public art, like a sculpture garden, or than and as a way to kind of like slowly introduce people to art. So I think the other thing is that it's on a university campus, which is important. So it's not. So it's also a university museum, and I think the idea was, you know, as a result, there's more younger people and students and people who are figuring out their lives. So I think somehow there was also this idea to bring in younger people and to represent a possible future for a city and a country that has always been in trouble and is right now maybe in the worst trouble since the Civil War. So, yeah, not to create a kind of tower isolated from everything, but to really open up the world of art and the street together. So that was, yeah, it's definitely part of the idea. I mean, we're always I mean, in architecture and power are always related. So it's difficult to simply throw bombs and, make incredibly strong moral stands because you're inevitably working for a segment of the population that does not represent everybody. So
Mhm.
even in public projects, although public projects are better, but I think that, um, so it's very hard to be extremely political. But we try to insert our politics where we can. I think.
Yeah, there's one question, sorry, that asks about the students looking at Pinterest and finding things that are like beautiful images. I think we were talking about that, but then I was thinking about like James Wines and the third in the square, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll give like two ideas. Oscar Niemeyer, his speech was about poor people are poor, and he used the word like they're fucked up. So
Mm.
at least I'm gonna build like a beautiful sculpture, so when they're like going by bus to work, they can look at it and feel happier.
Yeah.
And and I agree with this part of it has to be beautiful and people are happier. But maybe it's too patronizing and too like silly in a way to you continue poor, but it's beautiful. And I feel like the critique that James Wines does, it's pretty much the same. Let's make a Noguchi sculpture in this glass building and it's good. But on the other side, you're saying, okay, it has to be beautiful. I like personally, I think that you always push for beautiful things, but
Mm.
knowing that they have to perform and they have like this responsibility to be beautiful. We're not gonna make a nice, functional, workable political building that looks ugly and
Right.
beige,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like um, and then because I keep hearing from the students, and it's always like when I have to choose between I'll go back to what we're saying, I think, because when we have to choose between functioning and being beautiful
Mm.
and looking nice, it's always the choice of functioning. Like I can sleep at night knowing that my house is ugly because
Right.
I can go around and not hit anything. Why beauty, or why looking nice or feeling nice is not so high in the if we have to choose, why we always choose
Right.
working,
Right.
and maybe saying yes to everything, it's against that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's very rare that you have that choice, that you have to make that choice, I think. I mean, in my experience, I think it's important to collaborate with the client so they understand the ideas. But what we're often able to do is sell the functionality of beauty. I think, I mean, you're going to make something. It's not that much harder to make it nice. I think it's, it's very, the other thing is, find ways to make nice things that are also affordable. I think that is something we run into and struggle with, and we are struggling with right now because right now it's very hard to price things. And so, everyone starts pointing at the architecture, but in the end, it's not the architecture that's necessarily driving these prices. So you do have to kind of continually work at it. Um, but why people don't, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's like, this is like your thing about the end of the world. I think that, we have really big problems right now, that architects and architecture can address. And I think one way to get people to pay attention is to use our skills as designers and to use that ability to produce beauty, not just for people to point at from the bus, but to kind of think about and think, oh, maybe my house doesn't have to look like this, you know, because in the end, houses, the way that houses look, for example, is maybe not the way they need to be to address climate change or, to address income disparity or, so I think we want to use design, let's say design instead of beauty, use design as a way to wake people up and make them think that things can be different. And once people think that things can be different, I think that's a really important political thought as well. I think that the problem, what conservative or right wing politicians do is try to convince people that nothing ever changes. And in a way, it's not going to change. So we're just going to, keep doing it like this. Whereas you need people to think that things can change. And I think design is a really good way to do that. Does that make sense? I don't know. So in a way, it's very functional. I think.
Yeah, I think we can include like beauty or design as a function, but not as a look at, as Nehemiah says. I think this is, I don't know, for me, this is very interesting. And I see like in your list in 5 points, pretty much the only part that happens as a style design beauty is when you're in doubt, like when you know everything, and then now I don't know, I'll make it blue, or as Sabine asked.
But it's also important that we paint it blue because paint is very cheap.
Yeah, and I think now blue is it's too famous, but
Where did you give the lecture?
Here on Zoom, we're with students.
You are
right
with
now.
students?
Well, yes.
Hi,
hi
Tiago.
Amal, how are you?
We miss you.
Oh, I miss you too. I'm packing my bags already. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yago was the only tourist in New York City in May 2020.
I got like the right day where everything closed. It was so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, what we're talking, I know this is all the time we have. If anyone has any new question, but I just wanna maybe end. I know we had like 1 hour. Why it's not changing here? I just wanna ask, how is it going? Because now looking back, I think this work on facades really kept me thinking on because this is pretty much, we did a lot of tests on the facades, and I love this two the collage you did in the book. But I want to see like how you see in the future this, let's say, the facade idea, the balcony, going on. What do you think? If you thought about it, or you will
Yeah,
wait
I think
at the
right.
beach?
For us, it's interesting. I think the way that it's going is much more. We're trying to just put more things in there, and I think we're trying to become better, trying to get more expertise in like really cutting edge ideas about sustainability. And we're finding that a lot of times, this space between the inside and outside of the building can be extremely useful for cooling, passive cooling, and shading and equipment. And, so in a way, it's really like becoming a kind of interesting collage of function. And, so once you have it, let's say for a solar chimney, once you have the space, because you have a solar chimney, you can use it also for a playground, or, so it's kind of taking the Miami diagram where the stakes were very low because there was no need to do anything. There was no need even to keep rain or air out, right? It was the lowest possible form of facade. So, but to really, start layering more and more and more, and to really try to reclaim kind of technical expertise also for architects. So I think that's where that facade is going, getting deeper. And yeah, I mean, we're right now just trying to build things is what we're trying to do. It's going well. We scrapped this project is dead, so for now. But because we spent so much time here in our house in Rhode Island during COVID, we realized that we needed to tear it down. So we kind of took a lot of the ideas from the Arizona house and we moved it here to Rhode Island. So we have a new version for in the cooler climate.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take too long. I just want to thank you and thanks for the students that were here. Then we can talk later about it.
Yeah, I hope
And
you invisible students enjoyed it.
yeah, they did, I'm sure. No, yeah, I think the just to close, like the idea when we're saying on looking at things on Pinterest or books and precedents, I see there's an obsession with what we're doing, right? Going back to the work is more fun than fun, right?
Yeah.
There's like this crazy obsession that everything we need to talk about architecture, see architecture, travel to do, but it's not a burden. It's not heavy. It's always, I want to share this with the students. I think this is very important because it looks like something heavy, but in the office, late at night, we're all laughing and we're tired, but we're having fun. And I think it translates. And to me, this is very important. I think we miss the fun in working, or it's very easy to get lost.
Yeah.
And somehow it's related. Like you said, I don't want to point names, but Swiss architecture, I don't think they laugh in the office, right? It's not like the environment.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's it. Then thank you very much.
Thanks, Thiago. It was fun. Yeah, it was great. Thank you for putting.
It's always nice. Thanks for Amal showing then cuts. And if you need something, we're here.
Yeah. Is it okay? Is it recorded? I can show them all. Or
yeah. I'll send you the link later.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody. Bye. Thanks, Thiago.
Thank you. Valeu todo mundo aí.